Well, as for the last little video we did, we kind of worked along the ways for the crowns of these wise men or kings and did little demonstrations as to how I kind of did around the tops of Mary and Joseph and drew the line for Joseph's headband. But I'd say we're going to try to kind of get around to doing the rest of the little work for these little wise men here. And we already got little areas done around the mustache and beard and face, but I'd say it comes down to a point where we're going to try to take in and kind of put along the little work of the walnut in to try to work along how this is going to do. And so with all things, I say we're going to try to put on the little thumb guard, and I'd say just look along at these ones we've already done and see how we're going to repeat the steps. But as for how this comes along, say maybe there's little things we might ironically do first here, unlike what we did the last time. Maybe kind of remove the wood from the sides of the face first. That would be kind of a little interesting and unique to do this time around. And I've had to watch out with this knife before, because you know, you carve too close to yourself, you might end up cutting your belly. Never did that, but did one time when I first started carving, cut a shirt once by carving too close. But I'd say that we got the little work to come along just this way and kind of put a little time and effort and all that we are doing just to try to work our way along, see what this will be. Bless the children indeed, bless what they do. Oh, I say, you know, it could always be wonderful having a kid play with a nativity set once. I've known some people who buy little nativity sets for their kids just for that very reason, and it all just does a little good, even when it is so. And I say that this little time in my life, work along little ways, make it so we just brighten little stories and lifetimes. And oh, bless a little work, I say, be of good cheer, because Jesus said, I have overcome the world. Is what he tells us in the scripture, you know. I've overcome the world. And by this little way we go about these things, I say, it's just one of those little pieces of work that makes its way along. Wanted to mention another thing when I mentioned Manny's Woodworker's Place in the last video, that little place where we used to go to carve. Still remember Manny very well, who was the owner of the place. And just a few weeks ago, I was at my guild and asking one of my fellow carvers if Manny was still living, and the carver said no, I think he passed away. And kind of did a little internet research to try to find out when it was. Found out it was 3 years ago. It was 2020. So, and I read the little obituary about him, the little article, and how it came about, and you know, just little things I learned, how he probably had trouble getting a lot of jobs, which was why he started his business. You know, and we all just have our different reasons why we all struggle at getting jobs. There's even some jobs I struggle at getting, and I mean, the way I kind of depend on the government for disability check and benefits and work a little part-time job is just among those things where, I sometimes think that there's so much I have to depend on in life to kind of get ahead and do what I got to do. And it's just a good thing that there are certain ways in which I get those kinds of things covered. And I'd say even for me, working 3 hours a day in a cafeteria does me good enough. Sometimes it can probably get kind of rough here and there when, you're not out all day. I mean, I don't really run out of things to do. I'd say I'm probably inside a whole lot more because it's harder for me to get out these days around all these Generation Z kids and all the things they do and all the things they talk about in places, but kind of does me a little beneficial stuff because there's just probably more and more things I get to save my money for that way, and more things that I think were kind of like my childhood dream. It was my childhood dream to have taxidermed animals. I could tell y'all a little bit more about that, how as a kid I always wanted them. My mom was always saying, I will not have them in my house. As soon as you get your own house, you can. But even as an adult, I didn't get my own house, but I have my own little bedroom in the basement, my own little corner and territory of the basement, place in the basement where my mom never goes, so she really never has to see them, and so that's how it's worked for the better, and that's among the things I kind of get the money to save for when I don't get to be out as much. And it was kind of something that started back in 2020 when I was just unable to get out in places just to hang out and have good times because we were under lockdown for COVID and places were closed to the inside, only had their drive-throughs open, and even the patios were not good places to hang out in the winter time, so it wasn't all good for me as far as just how it went. And I'd say that the experience from one of us to the next has always just been kind of different for us, where we've gone, what we've done, where we've been. I'd say that this is just the way a little business has worked itself in, and I think I'm going to go ahead, carve out the sides of the faces along this bit of walnut here, and I say think it where it's going to find its way around to what we do, what we like, what we say, what we see. Oh, and I tell y'all that there's been a lot of places I've been where I've shared my card with a lot of people, shared my business with a lot of people, got to know a lot of people, and even had some followers to my page online who saw my posts, saw what I did, saw how I was doing, and all the things I was making out of things. And then I tell y'all that just a little work could pay the price now and then. Would say it'd be so nice to kind of sell some more expensive things at times and what they couldn't do. And I say these days, we work hard to get a lot of places we do. Not all of us really become celebrities, and those who do become celebrities don't really get to live private, personal lives. So it's kind of hard for each individual in different ways as far as how life goes, and the little things I find out in life about how being on any end of something can be kind of hard because, nobody has it made. of all the things I've heard. You know, even Solomon was wise and he was rich, but you look in Ecclesiastes, you find out that he wasn't happy with the things he had. He gained so much, more than any man ever could, and said after all that he hated his life and labor, because he would be leaving it to whoever would come after him. Sometimes our little riches and wisdom and knowledge can lead us astray. Sometimes that's why it tells us in much wisdom there is much grief, and where there is more knowledge there is more sorrow. That's how we all see little things as they come and they go. But we know that Solomon's in heaven now, resting with his forefathers, and up there where many more of us who have gone on since his time have gone. And so we know that there's a lot of good people up there we're going to meet, a lot of forgiven people, that is, but people we knew about during our lives here on earth, and all the things that we see about a place. And we know in all our lives there's so much forgiveness to us. I think we live in a world where people see things from a totally different point of view. So much online I've had to not so much associate with these days, because it'll get a little crazy now and then. But here, I tell you all, we finally got the little king carved out, and I will tell you all, poplar is not as hard a wood as these other ones are, depending on where in the tree you get it from. Some people say it is, but not to me it's not. I mean, and it wasn't hard to Calvin Grant. He could carve it, but it all probably just, I'd say it depends on which part of the tree you get it out of, because I've probably run into some soft poplar at times and run into some hard poplar at other times. So that's what I also heard it said, was it depends on the tree. Sometimes, you know, things can be determined by the tree, like whether it grows up on a hill or grows close to water. That can kind of have a lot to do with how so much of the grain will come out, and how hard it'll be, how soft it'll be, how light it'll be, how dark it will be. And so much we kind of see as far as how little bits of wood make their way along us. And whoa, 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 I tell y'all, little life shall tell us a way like we all never saw something happen. There's all these people these days who seem like they talk about a livable wage. I mean, I kind of work to have money to spend, but it doesn't always quite end there, you know. I say that little times in life, God is always blessing us with the good in our lives, making all things work together for good, like what he tells us right there in Romans 8:28. And the good in life, the good in God, and the good he makes work for us is all that's going to be what's going to matter in the end. And so much to find out about these verses. You know, we find out sometimes it's like the verses, they aren't just going to mean what we want them to mean, not going to mean that we're going to get what we want out of life. I once heard a preacher say that a lot of us like to play around with Romans 8:28. Yes, we often do, but it's all too often one of those things where we kind of learn It's not all about what we want to do. Sometimes it's about what God wants for us, and then we see what it comes down to. I just got the little beard and mustache made on the little poplar here. Got another little one to make to go along the same little path, and sometimes it might even help to do a different kind of cut, like the one I just have done here. Make it so it's so essential. And so by the work we have a little way to do. I say that this is just one little way. We work along little kings and Babylons and all the things we see happen in our lives to make us all know what we want to do and what we're good at doing. Oh, and a little work shall kind of brighten our days, see brighter days and brighter nights. Oh, and I'm telling you all that I'm working along this so much finer, so much better. Blessed ways, blessed work. Oh, little times in my life I say the way it is. Oh, there's things that change in our lives and make us all so we see the brighter image of the brighter days, and oh, a little work to come in, make its way through us. I say just one little piece of work at a time. I think we're gonna go along the top of the face here for once. Get the little mustache to come the rest of the way out and see how it's going to be, and finally come up with a good little king here. And I think we're going to go along this other part of the crown as well. Make it so it's going to be a little lighter and brighter. Things that happen in life make us all see brighter days and brighter evenings and brighter nights. Oh, how we come along this way, see kings and queens, and oh, I tell y'all, it's like I think about that Ray Stevens album, We the People, and that song about kings and queens that he sings. And it's just a little special song about how even with the little things in life, you know, you can kind of be a king or queen because somebody loves you and you love them too. And we come down to where we make the final cut, make the final place where the line is cut, and put a little bit of extra work along the way, make the crown come out just like it really should. And so it's going to be little work to come, little work to go, I say. And all these little lines and spreading out cuts going to make it so we see little ways in this. And you know, it's easy for me to carve and talk at the same time. It's one thing my mom was so amazed by was that I told her the other night. Right here. And I say there's probably going to be little more things we're going to come along and do here. Make it so it's going to be nice and neat and so good for us, and then kind of work along, see where we got little cuts to make along here, and along here, try to get a little lines, making it out, and probably I'd say we're on some of these, we sort of went all the way around like we did on these poplar ones. There's going to be a few on which we're going to get around to that part eventually, but think for a moment that might get out a different knife, and probably with this little detail knife, which has a shorter blade, easier to make detail with, try to cut out Joseph's little headdress from it and try to make that little line to come along that way, make it so it's going to be a little place where the headband is going to come in, and I say try to make little lines inside, make it so Joseph is going to see what's on his head and what it comes down to being when we get him all done. I say finally times when the work comes along, it's just how we work about the little things and all the things we make in life. Oh, blessed times. We see the work is all being done in the good. And so I say, it's just kind of the way that we see that we do in life for all the better for us. I say that there's a time when work is good, it makes us all for the better. Kind of got to show you all how I've gotten the headband made out here. Got another little line around the back to cut along as well, and see what it's going to be when we get all the way done with him. And I'd say little lines are just going to be what a little character comes to be when we get all the way done with him. And so come along these edges, cut along these little places, go along, kinda put the little hat in, and put a little ways of work around all that we're doing for the good, for the better, and finally just make little places where the lines are unique, where the lines are special, where they show just how good a little headband or a headdress is supposed to come out. And we got this other one to do it on as well. Put the little lines along the top, make it so it's going to see how we're going to take it to the place where the next little step will go. And so I say, this little place where a little work shall come along, we make it so this is going to be the headdress of Joseph the carpenter. We know sometimes there were little ways they worked in those days. Carpenters made furniture. People called Jesus the carpenter as well, and everybody worked different jobs in those days. Even the Apostle Paul, to that matter, he made tents. Tents were used in those days for traveling, and people lived in them and things like that. And then there were things that happened in those days that changed little lives. There were times, one thing I learned as a kid in Bible school, or in Sunday school, rather in primary Sunday school, was how that even in Bible times there were no cars. One time I drew a picture in Sunday school class and about a little thing by the road, and we were supposed to be drawing a picture of a Bible study, and I drew a car into the picture and was told there really were no cars back then. It was a little interesting thing to me. I didn't know that, but it was just a thing that, above all things, it was an interesting thing to learn, interesting thing to find out. We know that there were all the days that we didn't have a lot of the things we have these days, and all the days that things that exist now didn't back then. There was a time when I was a kid, I learned that when my parents were kids, there were no VCRs or video game sets or things like that, and until my mom was in the 6th grade, there was no color TV. That was a little interesting thing that I kind of learned around the time. And I'll tell you all now, we got 2 little headdresses made out. Come to think of it, there's probably a thing or two we'll do for Mary as well. We don't know what we're going to do yet as far as like making out arms or making out hands or how any of that is going to work, but I say there's probably just a thing or two we might work on eventually with some of these. It's just getting to be a moment when I might even be running out of steps here and can't make the video too long, but I'd say that it's a good thing now to try to get a little bit of work done in to these little critters and figures of everything we do, I say, and of all things, try to kind of get a little ways to work along this. I say, the work shall be fine, the work shall be done, and there's been a lot of things in life where we see how there's the stalkers of the world, you know, those who know no sense and all the things they have to provide security for in these days and ages. I say that this is just where we cut our lines, draw our lines, and I'd say we're probably about to get on 30 minutes here, but I'd say we might be getting this one about long enough for a video to be. Do think I'm going to try to take a little bit more breaks here because probably a little more tired now than I was Friday night when I was filming that one out on the porch. Don't know what kind of day it is, and still in the same sweat clothes that I slept in today. Haven't changed out of anything just yet, so I exercised at the gym last night, and these had to really get a real heavy workout to really calm myself because things were getting a little rough. I told you about my brother in previous videos, but I'm a little calmer about it now that I've had my workout. He just has a little diabetes, and that's what I wanted y'all to keep in your prayers, but I feel a little better now because I know he's taking care of it and everything's for the good. So I want to thank you all for staying tuned, for watching, for keeping up with this video. If it so interests you and you've seen enough videos that you think you'd like to subscribe to this channel, I'd be happy for you to do it. You can click the subscribe button, which is right on like a little box outside the video. And just wanted to say that this has been a good weekend, a good week for my fall break. I go back to work in my cafeteria tomorrow. I'm kind of saving money right now to kind of do some different things than I've normally done. And thank you all for coming on here and watching again. Hope you always stay in touch. Take care and stay safe.